Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Canadian Immigration Institute's live Q&A. I am your host, Mark Holthe, and I'm broadcasting from my home office here in Lethbridge, Alberta. I had to do this at a little bit of a different time for the simple reason that I had meetings all day with the federal government. And so I've been kind of scrambling to get a few things up to speed for everybody so that I'd have a few things to share with you. But really, this whole episode is all about sharing information, answering your questions, and keeping you up to date with all of the changes that are happening. So big shout out to my guest who's joining me. Igor has graciously agreed to step in away from his studies at the University of Calgary's Faculty of Law. So welcome, Igor. How are you doing?
Doing good. How are you guys?
Doing really good. So we're at a stage now where once again, the COVID virus has not disappeared. And we've spun into a new world where there is new viruses, new variants, and that's what I brought you on to talk about, Igor. So this morning, Igor reminded me about the recent changes and said, look, we have to do a news update on this. And I said, well, I'm going live right now, so let's talk about this together. And I'll let Igor kind of drive the ship forward initially. We'll talk about this change. If you're someone who's outside of Canada looking to travel to Canada, there have been some significant announcements that you had better pay attention to. So let's slide over here, Igor, and see what we've got. Let's go to the right page here. There we go. So this is the announcement, and we'll take this off here. This is the announcement right now that most people will have seen it. It was released just yesterday, November the 30th, and it's all as a result of this Omicron variant. So what do you think, Igor?
I think we're just in the period of time when things change really rapidly, and we will see a lot of new updates coming up in the next couple of days, maybe a couple of hours, because this news release was released yesterday, and we expect new changes, including the more information on in post-arrival testing. In the Canadian airports, those changes will come any minute. So as some of you may already know, there is a new variant called Omicron, and Canada is trying to preserve all of the gains that we've spent so much time and efforts achieving over the last year. And because we don't have much information on this new variant yet, we don't know whether it can evade vaccines, whether it's more contagious or more dangerous. Canada is just trying to be cautious and take every precautionary measure possible. Yeah. And so as of November 26th, there have been 7 countries that were banned, citizens of whom were banned to travel to Canada. And as of yesterday, they amended this list with another 3 countries.
And you know what's, Igor, when I think about this, and as we go over here, and we'll go to the edited version that we've put together here for the viewers, but when we look at this, and we're going to cover a little bit with this this particular little document, which is really just a PDF version of the actual news release, so that we can show you the highlighted portions. But when I look at this, Igor, and I look at the list, right? Does this not remind you of something? Does this not remind you of the days leading up to March 18th, 2020? Does it not remind you of the very, very first days in March, right? Yeah. We started, certain countries we saw, being listed as countries, that we were going to block. We saw with the Delta variant, right, with India, how they lock things down there, but this sucker's spreading fast, and now it's pushing into a lot of different countries, and everybody is freaking out because exactly what you said, we fought so hard to try to get back to some level of normalcy that now to see, the possibility of the new variant, this Omicron variant, it's just really, really scary.
It is. And it reminds me of my personal experience coming to Canada in February 2020, um, right before the borders got locked. When I landed in Canada as permanent resident, well, in Canada, they have like computers in the airport where you have to put in the information about the goods you're importing, the monetary values that you have, right? That you want to declare. And they had a question: have you been traveling to Wuhan? I, I,
Yeah.
I, I'm pretty sure most of the people don't even think of Wuhan anymore.
Yeah.
Like everyone forgot about it. And what we see in this list is a copy of what was back then in February 2020. Um, what's more terrifying is that by evening November 30th, yesterday, there have been 6 confirmed Omicron cases in Canada, including some cases in Alberta. I think there is just one Omicron case in Alberta, but that's the case that they have been able to track. I'm wondering how many cases they have not been able to track, and how hard it's to keep the full control over the list of contacts of those who traveled. Well, at least what we know right now is that Canada is doing their best. I had the privilege to travel back home a couple of weeks ago, and coming from Europe, I can see a huge contrast in how Canada approaches coronavirus and how COVID is being treated in European countries. And I was a little frustrated. Why would Canada require vaccinated travelers to be taking those tests? And now I know that that's the minimum that they can do to ensure safety of our permanent residents and citizens here in Canada. So I would highly appreciate their efforts, even though those efforts may be harmful and painful to others.
Yeah.
Yes, but touching back on the new news release, so there, so Canadian citizens, PRs, and people registered under the Indian Act, regardless of the vaccination status or their history of being COVID positive before, if they travel to one of those 10 countries from the list in the last 14 days, they will face significant enhanced pre-entry and arrival testing. If you're a citizen of those 10 countries, you have no shot coming to Canada. Then if we move forward, there is another important piece of information that we have from this news release is that in the coming days, all fully vaccinated travelers arriving by air from countries other than the US will have to do mandatory post-arrival testing. And while you wait for your test results, you'll have to quarantine. If for some reason you don't have a place to quarantine or you don't have a transportation to get to the quarantine location, you will have to quarantine any designated quarantine facility, which aka government operated hotels.
Yep.
So then what else do we have is that unvaccinated travelers will have to quarantine. They will get tested on a arrival date and day 8 of their quarantine. And nothing changes there. But mostly this press release relates to people coming from those 10 countries. And Mark, if you scroll down a little, under quick facts section, there's a list of new changes. So if you are a Canadian citizen, PR, or a person registered under the Indian Act, and you travel to one of the 10 countries in the 14 days, you will have to obtain a negative molecular COVID test in a third country within 72 hours of departure to Canada. This creates a huge bar for travel. So let's say you went to Egypt for a resort, and you're coming to Canada, and you have a layover in Amsterdam. You would need to get off the airport in Amsterdam, do a molecular test, receive results before within the 72 hours window before you depart to Canada, and only then you can get on the plane. then you will also need to do a post-arrival test, just as everyone else, regardless of your vaccination status. Then, if you are not fully vaccinated, you would need to quarantine, do a test on arrival and on day 8. And then while you wait for the results, you have to quarantine. And then finally, Mark, at the bottom of the page, there is another paragraph that is really important. So as of December 1st, vaccination is required for travel within and out of Canada. So if you travel to Europe, you will still need to have a vaccination, because otherwise they would not let you on a plane. And then if you travel within Canada, so let's say from Calgary to Vancouver, you would also need a vaccination. And before December 1st, you would be able to have a test done within those 72 hours. Now the test is not an option anymore. And so then if you check the last sentence over there highlighted in yellow, effective today, fully vaccinated Canadian citizens, PRs, and persons registered under the Indian Act who depart and re-enter Canada by land or air within 72 hours of leaving the country do not have to provide a pre-entry molecular test. So for the short trips, you don't need to do a pre-arrival test. All you will have to do is just the test before you leave the country. So that is a little better, I guess, for PRs who, let's say, want to go to college and drop their kids off. This would make things much easier. But then again, as I've mentioned in the beginning, things change so rapidly right now, and we expect new restrictions in the coming hours or days. So stay tuned. I'm sure we'll do another breaking news update about that.
Yeah. And the reality is we could absolutely be here adding to that list of countries as we see things expand. So we're not out of this woods. And many people who are overseas, outlanders, are wondering, well, how does this impact me? Well, at this stage, we're just going to have to wait and see. You know, if the virus, this Omicron virus, is as bad as they say, and it spreads everywhere, and the vaccines are ineffective, then this could push us all back to the same place we were back at the beginning of 2020. Now, obviously, the Delta variant was kind of confined, and we were able to deal with it. And when it came to Canada, the vaccines seemed to be pretty resistant to it, but or at least to lessen the effects of it. But we just don't know with this latest one. So those of you who are outside, or just, you know, outside of Canada, wondering what it means for you, well, at this stage, it's business as usual. But as things evolve, as we learn more, we'll make sure that we keep you informed.
I feel really sad for people who applied for PR from one of those 10 countries and who yet again are pushed into unknown by this new restriction. I know everyone is patiently waiting for their PPRs and COPR renewals. And if you coming from one of those countries, things are not bright and shiny for you as of now.
Yep. And, you know, like JWN here, our heart goes out to you as well. You know, when we look at the list here, Kenya is not on the list yet, but we hope that things are well with you and that you're able to just stay safe. That's the most important thing. Toyin, we know you're in Nigeria and you are on that list, right? And so anyone that is not a citizen or permanent resident of Canada, flat out at this stage, just like those of the Indian nationals, you're not going to be able to travel, at least at this stage. All right. And yes, neutral, there's definitely sadness. And just when we think we're at a stage where things are going to lift, then, you know, something like this happens. So hang in there, you guys. Do what you can to stay on top. Watch the news. Watch what's happening. Do all that you can to stay on track of you know what you're doing. If you've got applications pending, watch your email, monitor it, continue to move forward as we did before. Like I said, I had a number of meetings today where I was talking with immigration about processing, about the portals, about a number of things. I'm happy to answer questions. Terry Ann, I don't deny that statement in any way. The virus is definitely the devil, and we have to do everything that we can to protect one another and to just move forward. So, all right. Well, today is absolutely a live Q&A, even though we did this little news update just because we wanted to cover this. But Igor, before I let you drop off, do you have any specific questions or anything that you wanted to bring up to the viewers as we let you go?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, try to keep safe. That's the most important thing. Your PR application will come sooner or later. One day it will come, if you did everything right. But you have to protect your life and health and protect your close ones the best you can. And so, if it takes doing a vaccination, do it. Try to prevent the virus from getting you. As I went to Poland and my wife went to Ukraine, we were shocked as to how people are reckless in those countries, with keeping the mask on, keeping social distance, and things are totally different here in Canada. So just try to be as safe as you can. That's the best I can tell right now.
Thanks, Igor.
Yep.
All right, my friend, get back to your studies.
Yeah.
Have
right.
have a good time at class this evening. Take care. All right. So as you guys can see, this is still the Canadian Immigration Live Q&A. It's at a different time. I'm going to open it up to questions now. And for the balance of the time that we have together here, I'll answer as many questions as I can. Like I said, I just came out of a full day of meeting with IRCC and the various departments about a whole host of different issues. Some things we talked about, some things we didn't. I also want to let you guys know that Thursday coming up, so basically a little over a week from tomorrow, Will Tao will be back with me to talk about the impacts of the Chinook system, which is how the government is, trying to process large numbers of temporary resident applications in batch format, in bulk format. And we've got huge issues with it. And Will's going to come back and talk a little bit more about this ongoing court case that's working its way through the courts and pull back a little bit more of the curtain on this Chinook system that the government uses to assist in processing applications. They've indicated that it's not artificial intelligence, which to some extent, I guess, technically it's not, but the manner in which they are processing applications, I think it's something that people need to be aware of. And we, as within the Canadian Bar Association, for sure have been advocating for transparency. Our lawyers, that's why they've brought in these court cases through the federal court, because when there's massive backlogs of individuals, then they will do whatever they can to increase efficiency. And sometimes when efficiency is increased, then it compromises to some extent, the integrity of the adjudication process. So stay tuned for that. Watch out for that. Okay, let's get to some of these questions that people are asking, and I'll flip right back to the beginning. We've got a good group of people here that have tuned in at this crazy time, and I appreciate you coming in at this time. I wasn't able to do the one this morning because of those meetings, and then last night I had something come up right after I scheduled it to do it yesterday afternoon, so that I could do it in advance. So I appreciate you guys tuning in. So I've got Jacob from PEI, Roni's, he says he'd like to apply. Well, anyone who wants anything or any assistance or any direction, all you have to do, I'll just flip over here and I will remove that one. All you have to do is go over here to our website. There's a link in the description below. Click on Speak to a Lawyer, or it'll take you right here to our consultation. And anyone that has specific questions like, Mark, how do I apply, or whatever it is, you can go there and any one of our lawyers, our 4 lawyers, will be able to assist you, including myself. Okay, Rashid, hello. Good to see you from London, Ontario. We've got, and yes, we did some shout outs to those that are in Nigeria. Krishna says, why does the tier to PR healthcare sector moving very slowly at this pandemic situation? At least they can give some priority for us. Krishna, you are not a priority at all. And this is one thing that the government has made clear to us. So those individuals that are in Afghanistan right now are their priority. That's the decision that they've made. So when it comes to processing, they've allocated officers to assist with that process. And as a policy decision of the government, they've made the priority. People that are in Canada working are not as big of a priority as those who are facing life or death situations in Afghanistan. So that's what they've explained to us. And they apologize for the impact that it's having on people with their applications. But Krishna, you are not a priority for the government. And in many respects, their position is, your application being in Canada right now, going through a process that was created just out of a humanitarian and compassionate foundation. That's what the TR to PR pathway was. They recognize that it's moving slowly, but you're here and you've got a pathway to PR, and it will eventually get processed. So I know how you're feeling, Krishna. I know how you're feeling. I understand how people want their applications to be finalized so that they can get out of the survival job that they're trapped in, so that they can find employment in an area that they want to pursue, so that they can go back to school if they want to, without wondering how it's going to affect on their permanent resident status. They just want to be permanent. They just want to be permanent residents of Canada. I understand that completely, Krishna, but you rank a lot lower on the scale than when it comes to urgency, than the individuals that are in this crisis with Afghanistan. And so please understand that that's just a reality that we're all dealing with. Okay. Sajad says, applied 7 months ago for CEC, still no news. What should I do? Wait, my friend. Sajad, you just have to wait. Okay. All right. So Mary Lou says, and these were the questions that are coming up. So how would this new variant Omicron affect PR processing like me waiting for AOR under the tier to PR? I applied last May 25th and still sad to say nothing yet. Mary Lou, it doesn't affect the processing. This new variant and the decisions that they've made in terms of allowing people to travel, if someone has a confirmation of permanent residence and they're in one of these countries in Africa, they are simply not going to be able to travel. And it's no different than the Delta variant in India, where people were unable to travel, even if they had valid confirmations of permanent residence. So for you inside TR to PR pathway, it is not going to affect you any more than it is right now. Okay. Okay. We've got, I'm not sure exactly what that is, but here we go. Okay. Chima says, my maternal grandmother passed away. I'm really sorry to hear that. Can I apply for urgent processing of PR card, Mark? That's something, my friend. I think what you're asking is your maternal grandmother's passed away, and Chima, you want to travel, right? And there's nothing stopping you from requesting or asking for that urgent processing of the PR so that you can be able to travel and attend that funeral. You can. Once again, if you guys have any questions, you're not sure what to do, just come over here and book a consult with one of our lawyers. We can give you guidance and give you direction. Chanel's our newest lawyer in our firm. Whoops. There we go. Chanel is the newest lawyer in our firm, and we can maybe help you to navigate that process. Okay. Okay. Olu says, what happens to international students whose classes are not offered through the remote option? That, you know what, that's a really, really good question. Because if you are outside of Canada and you have an inability to travel, the schools have full decision-making power as to whether or not they're going to offer online or not. And unfortunately, that's one of the dangers of traveling abroad while you have a valid study permit, or alternatively, sometimes you get trapped in this situation because of the delays and how long it takes to issue the study permit visas. And so, yeah, I don't know what to tell you, Olu, other than this is just the reality that we're dealing with. And I know it's not something that people want to hear. How can we predict these kinds of things? But I just wanted to bring that up and just acknowledge your question and let you know that you're not alone. There's a lot of people that are in this situation. Okay. Kunjesh says, will this affect PR processing? Well, the reality is if there are visa offices in those countries and the virus is there, then absolutely it's going to affect overseas processing in those countries. Will it halt processing? If the offices have to close, if they have to remove officers, then absolutely it will affect those countries. So I think that's a pretty obvious response. This is very similar to what we've seen before. So not surprising at all. Okay. Let's see what else we have here. Okay. Joaquin says, hope you're doing well. I have a question regarding Schedule A. in the education section, do I need to include any incomplete study, 1 semester college study? So whenever I'm in this type of a situation, and you're talking about the Schedule A background declaration form, whenever I have any doubt about anything, I include it. So there's never, ever going to be a problem with including. However, if you go, and I'm not going to go into the whole Schedule A background declaration form and read all the questions, but it talks about the studies, and it asks you how many years of studies have you had, and then it asks for completed studies. Let me see if I can pull this one up. Let me just pull up the form right here. We'll see if we can take a look at it, okay? This is one of the advantages that I have with doing these lives, is that I have the ability to just jump right in and look at forms and assess documents right on the spot. So just bear with me 1 second here. I'm just going to lock this screen so I can move this. And then I'm going to open up the one form that I have downloaded here. Let's see if we can find it here. Just give me 1 second. Okay, let's take a look at the question here. It's always good to look right at the source. So let's flip over here. We'll go to this one. This should pull it up. There it is. Okay, so here's the Schedule A background declaration. And the question comes up right here in the education section, okay? So it says here, give the number of years of school you successfully completed, all right? So this is completed years of education. It doesn't even say programs. It just says how many years have you gone to school. So in your situation here, you're asking about whether you need to include, studies that were incomplete. So you just did 1 semester of college. Now I'm assuming you completed that 1 semester. Is that a year that you completed, or was it just part of a year? Well, the way the question is worded right here, it specifically states that you are to give the number of years. So I guess, when I'm doing this, then I don't count that if it's not a full year of studies that I've completed. And then in here, it says give full details of all secondary, that's high school, and post-secondary education you have had. So in this case, if it's not completed, I still put it in. So if you've started that course, you've started that program, then I absolutely do put the time, and it's year and month that you put in here. So I would include it in that spot. All right. Good question. And thanks for your patience. Okay. You're very welcome, Terry Ann. I think at this stage, that's all we can do, right? Is just offer encouraging words and support to one another. That's the basis of everything that we do. All right. Let's see what else we have going on here. Yeah, Ravindra, I haven't jumped in or talked about those draws. The reality is, when we're looking at what's happening with immigration right now, it's clear that immigration really wants to get a handle on the Afghan stuff. They want to get a handle on all of the outstanding processing of applications. And so because of that, we do not anticipate there being any rounds of invitations until the new year. And I think that's a pretty commonly held belief amongst most of us that have been following this carefully. And so I would not expect, Ravindra, to see a no program specified draw until the new year at the very earliest. So that's kind of a little bit of an update there. Okay. Parjit says no AOR and TR to PR. Yep. Submitted documents through web form. They got accepted. Will officer consider these documents in making decision? The officer has discretion. They can choose not to, or they can choose to do it. In most cases, you've seen those rejection letters or those automated responses that say, hey, we're not accepting any unsolicited documents through the TR to PR pathway program. And so it just really comes down to that officer. In your case, Parjit, the moment you get your AOR, the moment you have any request from them, often people will get requests if they don't have an updated medical or a police certificate, that they will get a request to go get that done. And then in your situation, that's where you, once again, even though you've tried the web form option before, that's where you jump in there and you provide all of the updates to your file that you can possibly provide. That's your earliest opportunity to provide them. Okay. All right. Let's see how we're doing here now. We're going to move to Kunjesh, is IRCC still going to process 35 to 40 under TR to PR pathway by December? My last update on my application was additional documents under review. So Kunjesh, that's what they had originally said. Remember when, and I watched the standing committee report where they asked for the officers to come and report on the status of the TR to PR pathway, and that was their target. Right, they had targeted trying to get that done for the year 2021, but the Afghan crisis has definitely thrown a wrench in a lot of things. So whether they do or whether they don't, it's uncertain at this time. If it wasn't for the Afghan crisis, I would say absolutely. And you guys have watched and you've seen that immigration has been pumping out 30 to 40,000 applications each month. They've been working really hard to get applications processed, and you can see that covers a broad breadth of application types, but they are really, really working hard to stay on top of processing. Okay, Rashid says if a child was submitted while submitting the application was below 22, but after getting AOR becomes 22, will that child still remain dependent? Lock-in happens at the time in which the application receives that the application is submitted and received by IRCC. That's when it's locked in. So yeah, the key here, if you're looking at the lock-in date, it's when the application is acknowledged as received, and then that 22 years is locked in. Obviously, many people have files, PR with older age dependents, and because of the length of time it's taking for immigration to process the applications, they're worried that now their kids are going to fall out of the age of dependency and no longer be included in their application. That's not the case. If they met the requirements at the time in which the application was submitted and received by RCC, then they have the ability of continuing forward no matter how long that application is processing and continuing to be a valid dependent child included in that application. So hopefully that helped, Rashid. Okay. Fayaz says, hey, Marcus, the visa offices make any difference in processing time? I'm waiting for my COPR from 8 months, 75 draw. Yep, you're just hanging in there, my friend. It depends on a lot of different factors. It depends on their ability to do background security checks. It depends upon which officer is actually processing the application. One thing they did, and I did have an opportunity today, which was kind of cool, was the various immigration practitioner associations were given a sneak peek into the intake part. So what the intake officers look like when they're doing the triaging for the completeness checks, and so that that process, we're able to see the actual interface that the officers use when they are receiving applications and then determining if they're complete, doing the completeness check, and then passing them off to the program officers who will be, or the visa officers that will be actually adjudicating the application. So, yeah, so that was kind of interesting. Okay, Grace says, if applying for express entry with my English scores and later take the TEF, can I update my application to count my French scores as well? Absolutely, Grace, 100%. And that's actually a nice segue just to remind everybody. And let me just push this off here just to remind everybody, if I can figure this out, what is going on here. Bear with me. I think my computer, I always blame it on Microsoft. They're the ones that cause me so much problems here. That should have disappeared there. And then let's flip this over here. So you can see here, if we go in, starting on December the 6th, in 5 days, so on Monday, I will be launching my next Express Entry course. And for all of you who are in the process of preparing and getting ready to be able to, the moment that ITA is received, move forward with your applications, now is actually the time to start this process. And if you come in, take the course, attend the masterclass with me, which will be the full December 6th through the 10th, 5 to 6 p.m. every day in the evenings Mountain Time. All of the questions, all of your concerns about Express Entry, we will cover them. But in your case, Grace, absolutely, there is no problem with updating your profile once you've got a French test. But the key, and if you do it correctly, as I show in my course, then your scores will be adjusted, and then your new score will be available for the next round of invitations, and your lock-in date will not be affected. Okay. All right. NECA, watching on Facebook, says, do you know why TR to PR applicant was given a temporary number for the past 3 months? Nothing since. Then MP called IRCC and they said they're reviewing criminality. Not a clue, NECA. This is a classic example of where I would direct you guys right back here and we can look in and see what we can do to help. I'm not sure why this stupid thing is doing that. That's really irritating to me. Let me just flip this back. I'm going to put this in the current scene. I should be able to. I know why. It's because of this. Just give me a second, guys. I'm adjusting on the fly here. So now when I shift over here and show you my page, it should work. Yeah, that's better. So yeah. So go over here and book a consult and we can help you to sort out, what is going on. And obviously when it comes to reviewing criminality, well, NECA, I'm assuming there's something that you are aware of with respect to your history that's showing up in your police certificates, or there's something else there that's causing the issue. Okay, let's see who's next. It's good to see you, Sajad. Thanks for connecting in. Okay, and I see a number of people are kind of duplicating their posts, so I'll try to skip through them. Okay, Jacob says, if I have 11 months full-time work experience, is it safe to create a profile for CEC? This is exactly the type of thing that we deal with in the course. All the time I'm dealing with that type of a situation. And the short answer is it depends. So ultimately, when you're talking about 11 months full-time, I presume that you are just short of the 12 months, but because of the month, the way they calculate based on months, they're rounding it up for you. So in some cases, immigration has told us that if people file applications and they are given, 1 year before they actually have the 1 year being obtained in reality because of the rounding of months, that as long as you wait the extra 2 months or wait till you fully meet the 1 year time period, then at that stage, they usually don't fuss too much about an EAPR application being submitted, provided at the time you submit your EAPR, you have that 1 year. But Jacob, it just depends on circumstances, and rarely do I ever counsel people to do that in the case where they need that 1 year for eligibility. So for CEC, you have to have that 1 year. Often I often tell people to wait. Don't put your profile in until you fully meet it. In other situations, it's the 2 year mark that they're getting credit for before it's time. Well, in those circumstances, there may be very valid reasons why you want to take the ITA and run with it if you get it. But as far as submitting your profile, there's nothing stopping you if it allows you to put the profile in and having an earlier lock-in date. But if you do get an ITA before you reach the 12 months, that sometimes can be the issue. Okay. Okay. So Clarence says, I thank you for this live Q&A. Are temporary work permit holders allowed to study less than 6 months program in Canada, even without a study permit? Less than 6 months applies to whether you're a work permit holder or whether you're a visitor in Canada. You can study for programs that can be completed in less than 6 months without the need for a study permit, including while you're on a work permit. Okay, let's see here. Okay, so George says, okay, in my job, I manage cases. Okay, in one click, I can sort my case based on created date or due date. What is happening with IRCC that they are finalizing CC applications for September 2021, not March 2021? George, it all comes down to how and the manner in which those applications were filed. And every single person, and I know you're going from your own experience and you're trying to figure out why in the world are they not finalizing my application? There are always extraneous factors that come into play. Remember, this system that they used for processing has so many different variables that it's impossible to use a small sample size like yours and say that this is the reason for all applications. Because what you're asking, George, is why is my application not being finalized when I hear other people getting theirs finalized? It could be everything from the program, the manner in which it was filed. It could be the number of officers that have been assigned to process certain types of permanent residents. It could be an officer is looking into something in a person's background. I'm not saying that's you, George, at all, but that's taking a long time because they're relying on a third party to do something for them. There's a whole host of reasons, George, and there isn't one answer that I can give you other than I feel for you. I wish you're one of the last ones, my friend, that are an alumnus of the Express Entry course. And you've done everything that you need to. You've done everything correct. And so please understand that I hear you. Hang in there. Just hang in there just a little bit longer. You're so close. Okay, Bilal, just like I said, no word officially, but I don't think there's going to be anything happening when it comes to Outland. No program specified draws until the new year. Okay, Ola says, hey, Mark from Nigeria, is the ban on Nigerian traveler going to affect Nigerian applications? Like I said, if the visa offices are affected and they're unable to process, then that absolutely could. If you're issued a confirmation of permanent residence, if you're applying for a temporary resident visa, if you're applying for a work permit or a study permit, absolutely will, because until that ban is lifted, you will not be able to travel. And you won't be able to come to Canada. And it's the same thing that we saw, Ola, with the Delta variant and citizens in India. Yes, George. George says, I understand that Canada CC is not a priority compared to Afghans. But if so, then how come they're finalizing the application in September? Yeah, and I can see there isn't an explanation for this, George. I really don't, other than what I've just given you. And I know the frustration. I feel it. I hear it. It comes at me from all directions. And in our discussion that we had today with some of the head officials within IRCC, there are a number of factors that play with this. And you know, there was never an answer. There was no good answer that they could give us. And we said, look, we have clients, we have people that are wanting to know. I have obligations with the Law Society of Alberta to provide my clients with communication to help them to understand where they're at in the process. And when we don't know and we go to immigration and they say, well, we don't really have an answer for you because of ABC, it just makes it impossible. And so I hear you, George. I feel for you. And I'm really, really sorry that you're kind of stuck in this situation. My goodness, my friend, when you get that PR and you are finally done this process, we're going to celebrate. Okay, Harshil says, applied for a spousal open work permit in November, applied international graduate stream in May, then applied CEC in July. Is there any conflict of interest to stay in Canada with the work permit and PR? This is a great question, and this is where I flip over here and I go direct to the consult and I say, book a consultation so we can look at this in details. Because anytime someone brings up a question like, is there a conflict? What should I do? Should I leave Canada? Should I do this? Should I? That, my friend, is absolutely something that we would classify as a legal question. And I don't have my bell. I don't think so. Oh, no, here I do. I do have my bell. I'd ring my bell and say, book a consult, Harshil, and we can sort that out. All right. There we go. I do have this one. I'm going to play it. Congratulations, Jobin. You'll have to let us know where you are. Are you inside? Was it TR to PR? Was it Express Entry? Were you Outland waiting forever and ever, Jobin? And then finally, now you've got your visa back and your passport. Let us know. Comment below, okay, Jobin? I'd love to hear the full details. Okay. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Yes, Terry Ann, she says, I've stopped expecting a response from them for tier to peer. Should I still enter the pool pending correspondence for the tier to peer application? Okay, now, do you mean Express Entry? There's nothing harming you from putting an application in the pool if that's the case, Terry Ann. Okay, Abdi says, my IELTS expires in 2023. If I submit my PR and now AOR is taking long, if my IELTS expire, will I have to redo it? No. The only thing, when you file your EAPR, you're locked in, okay? So if you filed your EAPR, you've got your AOR, you're locked in, and none of those things will expire. Okay. Susie says, can we change the status in PR application for one Outland dependent from the banned countries to avoid the delay of the file and family? Oh, yeah. This is a tough one, you guys. This is really, really tough. I know for a fact that many people are going to be looking at ways in which to try to get around this, and it's not something, Susie, that I can really advise you on. All I can do is just ring that bell and encourage you to slide over and book a consult here so that we can work through it with one of the lawyers, okay? That's the best thing that I can give you right now, Susie, because, wow, like you have to be really, really careful with that. I'll tell you why. I had a client who called me Well, they booked a consult with me because they were trapped in Mexico. Why? Because they were an Indian national who was unable to fly from India. So they instead took a flight and flew, and this is during the Delta variant ban, flew from India to Mexico because their consultant had told them that there was no problem to do that, only to find that Air Canada wouldn't let them board. So when Air Canada asked how long they'd been in Mexico, they realized what was happening and that they were trying to do a loop around the restrictions. When Canada bans travel from a country, trust me, the airlines take it seriously. And you might be able to get from one country to another. You might be able to have paid for the flight, but at the end of the day, those agents have been instructed to that they are the front line. And if they allow someone to travel and then the CBSA turns them around, there's massive fines for those airlines. So Susie, I like when you as far as changing status for an application for one outland dependent from the banned countries to avoid the delay of the file inland family, that's something that I really recommend. And I know what I described wasn't directly related to your question, but I recommend you book a consult so that you can sort it out. It's totally worth it because then I get all the information that I need, or Alicia does, or Chanel, or Susan, and then we can actually give you advice that you can rely on because these are really, really difficult questions. Okay, B2K says, police certificate expired, non-Canadian, but I haven't left Canada since I received the PCC. Can I still submit this for TR to PR when I'm contacted to provide background checks? Yes, you can. It's a valid police certificate. Yes, you can. All right, let's see what else we have here. We've got a few more minutes to go. Yeah, so Elias, IRCC didn't say anything about processing times for express entry. So in terms of it, it's moving through the queue. All that they said is that Afghan crisis is a priority number 1. Family reunification is another priority number 2. Third pillar is maintaining the food supply, the infrastructure within Canada for the temporary residents, the ag programs, those kinds of things. And so those things rank higher. How everything else is structured, it just depends. So yeah, they didn't give us any clear answers. Okay, Abid says, for the OINP, what if someone does not have salary slips of a previous company? What alternate documents can they submit to be accepted? Oh, but this is another one. The Ontario Immigrant Nominee Program is not the same as Express Entry. So within Express Entry, we know that they're rigid, but we also know that if you don't have salary slips, the salary slips are, if available, right? That's what the document checklist says. For the OINP, that's not the same. So whenever you're going through the limited spots that they offer, they're very rigid with what they have. And when it comes to whether or not they will accept any other piece of information, well, all you have to do is make the pitch, explain why you don't have them, and then provide something in lieu of them that confirms that you were actually paid and the time period in which you worked. And so we look at everything from tax documents from your home country. We look at, are there T4s? If it's in Canada, were there other, records of employment, any other government issued documentation that would act as a solid support in lieu of those salary slips? So, but there's no guarantee, Abid, that they would actually accept that. Okay, Chima says, I talked to IRCC and they said you can apply. Yes, you can. Yes, you can, Chima. Absolutely, you can apply. But what goes in there to convince them that it's actually of such an urgent nature? What do you actually have to include? That's the question, right? And so that's why I always direct people back to book a consult so that we can help in compiling what is going to give you the best chance of them taking in that request seriously. All right. Okay, Janik says, applied through TR to PR and CEC. Received the letter from TR to PR that the decision has been made in other applications, but haven't received response from CEC. Applied with Outland spouse, it has been 3 weeks. Yeah, so it could be that they're at the stage where they've assessed eligibility and recommended your past, and now it's just the background stuff that's being processed. And so when it comes to overseas dependents, yeah, you're at the mercy of the visa offices abroad and IRCC. There eventually will reach a stage where they'll make you choose. And so, yeah. And so, if they say that a decision has been made in another application, then obviously the only route you can do is to follow up. And right now with immigration, they've been honest. They said, look, we've allocated a whole bunch of our officers who traditionally respond to inquiries. We've put them on phones that are 24-hour helplines for people who are calling from Afghanistan. And remember, this is the way one of the officers explained it to us. And I think it's fair to share, and I don't think they would have a problem with me sharing this. But he said someone may be trapped in one location and they send an email. And then 2 hours later, they may be in a different location. And then 4 or 6 hours later, they may be at another location, and they continue to send inquiries. And so these officers are on call 24 hours, 24/7, trying to respond and support people who are trying to get out of Afghanistan, who are trying to get to other countries, trying to, help them to know what the options are. And so as a government, Parliament made the decision that this was a priority. And so all government departments now have made this a priority until they deem that it's no longer necessary to have it as a priority. So, okay, let's see here. Okay, this is a good question. Can I study for a postgraduate diploma after 10-year gap from my bachelor's degree? Well, it depends. It depends on so many factors: the school you're going to, your study plan, your education plan, your professional plan. Why do you want to take this program? How is it going to help you? And this is the key part. How is it going to help you in your efforts to improve your employability or your job prospects, or to advance your professional career or otherwise in your home country? Not how is this going to open up pathways to stay in Canada. So your job is to make sure that you can very fully articulate that. And that's why I keep directing people back to book a consult with our firm. So at the very least, we can give you a high-level overview of what you need to focus on. Now, 10-year gaps, and I'm going to talk about this a week from tomorrow with the Chinook system with Will Tao. And we're going to go into a little bit more depth about the court case and what's going on and how this is impacting processing. But yeah, gaps in education are significant, factors that probably sit on the refusal side of the equation. But just because you have a gap in and of itself doesn't result in a refusal. If it does, that would be an error in law. I think they would have to, they'd have a hard time justifying that refusal just because there was a 10-year gap. But everything is different. All of the people that are applying have different backgrounds. No two people are identical. No two officers are identical. And they do have discretion. Okay. Let's see what else. Cato, good to have you. Nice to see you here watching on YouTube. And yes, Majda, watching on Facebook. Absolutely. I know we're all hoping for an all program draw in January. So hang in there. Same thing, Grace. I think it for sure it will be next in Q1 in the first quarter. Okay. Good evening, Divine. Good to see you. Okay, let's see. Alexa says, hey, Mark, remember I said I got my AOR for TR to Pure a few weeks ago? I just got my e-Coper the other day. Early Christmas gift. Thank you for your help and blessings. That is so awesome. I'm going to give you a round of applause. That is so wonderful, Alexa. I'm so happy for you. Just having had the privilege of playing some small part in so many of your journeys just means everything to me. So thank you. Thank you for coming and sharing that. That's just wonderful, Alexa. Congratulations. Okay. All right. So Cato, same thing for you. This might be too specific, and I may need to indicate this and direct you back over here because we need more information. Over here is where you can book the consultation with Alicia or any of the other lawyers in the firm. And I say that because I never want to give specific advice that relates to an individual unless we have all the facts. And so you've got low points, just got your post-grad. I'd like to ask if I have 370, which province should I move to and apply under? If I am an early childhood educator, thank you. Yeah, Cato, that's absolutely something that I would have to direct you back to for a consult so that we can go through all of those options, okay? One thing I do know is that you probably wouldn't want, at least in the context of express entry streams, think of the province Alberta. They only have pathways through their Alberta Opportunity Stream for people that are graduates of schools in Alberta and are working in a field related to their field of study. they have pathways through Alberta's Alberta Opportunity Stream. But technically, if you have a profile in the queue and you are working for an Alberta employer, then sometimes they will recognize that work experience and extend a notification of interest through the Alberta Immigrant Nominee Program's Express Entry Stream. But when it comes to just uprooting from one province and going to another, there's a whole lot that goes into that assessment, Cato, and it's not something I'd be able to provide today. Elsie, you're very welcome. And okay, the Teenage Queen says, is IRCC start processing July files? Wow, I'm not sure. That's too small, my friend. I don't know which ones you're referring to specifically. Okay, let's see. And Simply's got a follow-up question here. Studying while on temporary work permit. If original program length is only 6 months, but completion extended to 1 year due to pandemic, will that be grounds for PR refusal, deportation? Wow. Once again, I'm going to keep ringing this bell, you guys, because I know this is your situation and you need to book a consult so that we can go through this and give you proper advice. Okay, Erica says, I have my PR application under the Rural Northern Immigration Pilot waiting for final decision. Last update I had is August. IRCC have planned to give us the final PR decision. My status is near to expire. Now, when you have applications in the queue, this is one of the issues that we're really struggling with. What if you are someone who has an application and you don't have a bridging open work permit pathway? Work permits are expiring. Erica, once again, I recommend that you book a consult, because at this stage, I need to see a little bit more background to understand exactly what options are available. Sometimes there are work permits that can be pursued to allow you to continue working while your PR application is being processed. But with the Rural Northern Immigration Pilot, I haven't looked at that. There's so few people that I know that have actually gone through it. I haven't looked to see if one of those work permit options might be available. And so I don't want to, say something that isn't true here, Erica. So I recommend that you book a consult and then we can take the time to dive into it together. But whatever you do, don't wait, because as time disappears, like you've identified here, you have to be prepared and know what to expect. All right, we're just about done here, guys. We're going to go just a little bit more. Sukaman says, I applied in TR to PR, got refusal due to missing Schedule 3. I am so sorry. My work permit going to expire tomorrow. What should be my next move to remain in status? Please help. Sukaman, absolutely. The only thing I can tell you to do is to book a consult. It's not something that I can give you advice on now. I feel really bad about that. Definitely, I would have hoped that a consultation could have been booked earlier on so that, the moment you got your refusal, so that we could explore options. But regardless, if you book a consult, I know that one of our lawyers has openings tomorrow. So head on over there, book a consult, and let's see what we can do to give you at least some direction and advice. You don't want to just kind of put the blinders on and then just kind of hope for the best. But that breaks my heart when I hear people who get their applications refused because of missing documents. So heart goes out to you. Vinny, can the MP help? Applied in CEC 7 months ago, no decision, living here for the last 10 years, and it's really getting frustrating. Now don't know what to do. Well, obviously inland 7 months is not an inordinate amount of time. So the processing of a CEC application, if you're sitting at 7 months, that's not unusual. I don't know if your work permit's expiring or if there's anything else other than the 10 years. Maybe I look back seven months. So that's, let's see. So you're one of the later, but the CEC probably dropped down for you, right, Vinny? It probably dropped down to a point where you maybe never had an opportunity to apply before. So in those circumstances, it's really, really awesome that they did these rounds of CEC only draws, because that was probably the only way you could get in. So hang in there, and just do what you can to keep your spirits up. Okay, Richard says, applied May 6th. Yep, TR non-essential, have not received a wire, email, nor advisors link, choosing any advice. Wait, many people are in that situation, Richard. You know your application is submitted. It's just a matter of painfully waiting. Okay, couple last questions. Raj says, I have enough funds in my bank savings account, and I also have investments in stock exchange. I've only shown my bank account as proof and submitted the APR. Will it be a problem? Well, they've told you that they want to see your full picture. Ultimately, I've never seen an officer come back at someone because they have money in an investment account that they didn't disclose. But the instructions tell you that you're supposed to do that. So sometimes if it's an EAPR, I'll just update it. I'll just send an email and they'll send a case specific web form, and I'll say, hey, please note that I didn't realize until now that you also may have wanted to see that I have investment funds. I know I can't use them for proof of funds because they're tied up in the stock exchange, but for your information, I do have these investment accounts. And so there you go. That's what I recommend, Raj. Okay. Okay, let's see what else we have it here. Let's see here. Parjit, I'll finish off with Parjit. Says, have entered the wrong job title in the Form 130, but correct knock in TR to PR, essential worker, but job duties on job letter match fully with knock. Is it a problem? Parjit, this is another one that I just, all I can do is just ring the bell and encourage you to slide over here and actually book a consultation with us, because how you deal with these issues can mean the difference between saving your application and not. And so, so I recommend you book a consult, because ultimately, if you don't have, you can see here, so basically you've entered the wrong job title. Titles are not as critical when it comes to the assessment process as job duties are. So if you selected the proper knock and the job duties match, then the title being off is not a critically, fatal problem. But at the earliest opportunity, you want to try to correct it. Now, I don't know if the reference letter you provided, had a different title, or what the disconnect was, or you just entered the wrong title just in the form, and or whether the letter itself had the wrong title too. I don't know. But ultimately, you want to try to correct it as soon as you can. All right. So that is the sign-off music there. We'll let that play in the background a little bit. I'll try to hit just a couple more questions here for you guys. Chaitanya. Oh, I got to switch this, guys. I got to switch this to an applause and crank it up here. Chaitanya, my friend, finally. And you guys see, post below, Chaitanya. How long have you been waiting? Okay. He says, finally got the COPR on Saturday. Waiting on the PR card now. Thanks again for everything. Okay. So Chaitanya, I want you to post in the comment, and I'm going to pull it up, how long you were waiting from when you started that process. So lots of people get really frustrated and impatient because they see other people passing them by. But the one thing that I know is if you've done everything right, you're not going to be faulted for immigration's gong show on the other side and their lack of an ability to process in a timely fashion. So Chaitanya, make sure you post below, and I'll pull it up exactly what how long you were you're waiting from when you first got the information to provide your email so that they could set up the landing portal. So I want to see what you got to say there, Chaitanya, just to remind. Okay, there we go. So there we go. So Chaitanya says 87 days for the whole application, 18 days for the COPR, 15 days for the credentials, and there he goes. Great. Thank you so much, Chaitanya, for sharing that. Okay, guys, we are gonna wrap that up. So I appreciate everybody tuning in today. Always, this whole thing, you guys, is sponsored by the Canadian Immigration Institute. And like I said, this is the last course I'm going to do for a while. So if you want to get in, now's the time to do it, because without the rounds of invitations, I'm going to hold off on doing more express entry courses. Okay, so now's the time to get in. Just go here, click on Get the Course. If you want to find out more information about it, I have a video here that contains a bunch of information. You can scroll down, you can see what other past alumnus have to say. And you can see we had back and forth here with George, who's one of the last alumnus that has gone through the process and is still waiting to become a permanent resident of Canada. So head on over there and register for that. Take advantage of this last one of the year for sure. And then in the new year, we'll just have to see how it plays out. I look forward to you joining me every evening, 5 to 6 p.m., masterclass with me and the members of that group. And ultimately, the biggest issue is any of the questions that you don't have or unable to get answered, especially in these live Q&As, we cover everything. In fact, we become just like a family. So last Express Entry step-by-step course and masterclass with myself, Mark Holthe, that will be available. And thank you. Thank you, Odile, and everybody else for tuning in today. There's another live. I wanted to squeeze it in, give you guys a chance. Remember to tune in tomorrow, because tomorrow at 11 a.m. Mountain Time will be Alicia will be joining me on the Q&A again. We've got another one back by popular demand, and we're probably going to make that a permanent fixture for Alicia. So eventually I'll drift off and Alicia will run that Q&A. But there you go, guys. It was an absolute pleasure. Thank you, Loretta. Thanks for joining. And those who I didn't get to your question, remember tomorrow, 11 a.m. All right? All right, there we go. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you guys later.